There are certain things in Xano that are relatively slow to do, but that the extension makes very, very fast. One of them is being able to take things like tables that you might be querying and switching around what tables you actually want to work with. So ordinarily, if I were in query all records and I want to be switching from one table to another, I would need to, create new query all records. I would need to set up with the appropriate table, set up all the exports, what have you. But if all you want to do is like work with like a cloned version of the table or something, or you have a migrated table from another environment, well, that's pretty easy to work with. You can just, because in the state change extension, you have access to this change table button, which allows you to just pick some other table. Now, it doesn't guarantee that table is going to work. So you're going to need to make sure that you pointed it to a table that is actually successful. Otherwise, you'll wind up getting a whole lot of errors. But if I just do a quick refresh here, you'll notice that it stays. And all I had to do was click and sort of work with that drop down there. So this becomes something that allows you to much more quickly figure out which tables you want to make changes to. And then, of course, it can always undo or what have you. But it will just work right out of the gate. And no particular errors, and it's all happy to work. This works for both tables, but also works for functions. So if I click on change function here, I can modify what function it actually goes with, and it will make that connection appropriately as well. So I can just sort of click in and say I want to use this function instead of that function, and it will have made that update. So that as you keep on going, you don't need to go rebuild all of your inputs or the way that it works, etc. You can just very quickly make those kinds of changes. This is actually really handy when you want to move functionality around, like from one function stack to another function stack, but it's actually going to be for a slightly different table. Now you can move it around, and then you can use change table, and you're off to the races. A related thing is state change export, where you can take these lines in here, right? And you can do this traditional copy and paste inside Xano, and that works perfectly fine. It works great when you're within a function stack. But you also have state change export of these two steps. This has a couple of benefits to you. One benefit is that it will, work across across workspaces. So if you have something that like is referencing a table and you move it to another workspace, Xano won't let you carry it across because the table won't carry across. But if you already had a version like a user's table or something that you're trying to reference, you can then combine that with the fact that you can just change the table at the other end to get a lot more speed out of the whole exercise. And so if I were to take these two lines here, and I were just to say, well, let's just duplicate this for a second, and if I were to have this looking at my, in here, go over to my YouTube, and I wanted to go to my library. I just can create a very quick function here that is, recipient of paste, right? And I wanted to take this stuff here, and I'm going to, take these two lines. I wanted to just copy them in my Xano. I would then come over here and I would say, well, let's try to paste them. And I would, it's actually a little tricky because you have to first add something here. But then I'm in a position where I can just paste and say paste after, and it won't let me. And it won't let me because the clipboard doesn't belong in this workspace. That's because it includes a reference to a table that we didn't previously have. So now if I instead use the, use the same thing. I'm going to go shift click and do export those two steps. Boom. I can go over to here, and instead of saying paste, I'm going to use this import button. Brings them all right in, right? Now it'll say this to a table that's not valid, but that's why the change table button becomes so useful, right? So these things combined create a whole lot more value, so that you can be moving the code that is useful to you around from workspace to workspace, from instance to instance, and it all works relatively straightforwardly. One more thing that you can do with this that is pretty handy. I can always click export all steps, and if I were to go to, this is from, I can always say, export all steps here. And if I go back over to here, if I just go blow everything away, right? If I say I'm going to revert all my changes, and now I have nothing in here at all, It's the button, the import button is just right there for me. So one of the neat things about the import export in state change versus the normal cut and paste is that you can do it when there's absolutely nothing there, and it's super, super easy to work with and fast. And that's pretty handy. And then the final thing that I want to bring to your attention here is that when you use state change, import export, you have access to the same kind of clipboard type functionality. And so I can view what's currently in my clipboard, and it will contain a compressed payload of everything that was copied in terms of those steps. And the neat thing here is I can copy this, and I can put this into, a Notion page or something, right? And go bring up a new Notion page and just go paste that in. And you can now save snippets of your code, and then use them across time, because then I can just sort of take all this, so grab all this, copy that, go into, here. I'm just gonna, clear out my thing, and I'm gonna say, time travel, paste. And if I want to, I can go into here and just import it by adding it to the import clipboard, paste, add, and then it's available to me through the import, and I can just bring everything on in. So you have the opportunity to be copying and pasting, across workspaces, to be copying and pasting where the tables don't necessarily exist yet, like here neither the function nor the table exist yet, but all the inputs are set up. So if you can just sort of clean it up, point it to the right function, point it to the right table, boom, you are done. You can do it across time. You can share it with your colleagues using this approach. It is a pretty handy bit of business. And so these are the improvements that we have in the actual function stack for your Xano that just allows you to move a whole lot faster.